Welcome into the Alabama Football Report. I am your host, RC Maxfield. It is Tennessee game week, but this is not the preview. We're actually going to be doing a little bit of recruiting rumors and news on the show today. But as I mentioned, it is game week and it's almost game day. So before I get into the recruiting rumors, help me out and just let me know that you're watching this video and give me a strict roll tide down in the comments below as, oh man, the volunteers, I feel so bad for them coming down to Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday afternoon. It is not going to be a fun time for Tennessee. Thankfully, Alabama doesn't have to go to Tennessee because I don't like mustard to begin with, and I definitely don't like mustard bottles thrown at me. Just give me a roll tide down in the comments. Let's get into the recruiting rumors update. First off, how's the new commit sound to everybody on this one? Trequon Fegans has officially announced his commitment to the Alabama Crimson Tide. The 90th ranked player in the class of 2022, according to 24/7 Sports, picked Alabama over the University of Miami, South Carolina, and Arkansas. Interesting enough, he's teammates with the top recruit in Alabama's 2022 class in Jeremiah Alexander at Thompson High School in Alabaster, Alabama. Now, you're thinking to yourself, RC, what does that do to the recruiting ranks? I'm glad you asked. Producer Trey's quick with it on there. He might have gone to Arkansas, a.k.a. the Harvard of Arkansas, but he's smart enough to put the graphic on the screen. Alabama sits at number 1 in the top 5 recruiting classes of 2022, according to 24/7. Georgia right behind him at number 2. Penn State at number 3. Ohio State at number 4. And then the Golden Domers at number 5, with Notre Dame rounding out the top 5. How does this translate to the SEC? Well, obviously, Alabama and Georgia will be number 1 and 2 because, well, they're number 1 and 2 in the national rankings. But it's strictly in the SEC. They're also 1 and 2 with Texas A&M and LSU. And then Missouri? How the hell did that happen? Talk about that a little bit later. But Alabama continues to climb the ranks, and this shouldn't be any surprise, right? Every kid in the country wants that Alabama offer. It's just, does Alabama want you? And obviously, Fegans is one of those guys where you love his size. He's 6'2", about 200 pounds, and really just runs like a gazelle on the outside. Love the physical tools he brings to the table, and I don't know if he'll be an impact player right away for the Crimson Tide, but I do think that he will have an impact once he steps on the field in Tuscaloosa, whether that's as a sophomore or later down the road as a junior. But predict it for me. I said that Alabama is the number 1 recruiting class right now in 2022. Will they finish that way? Will the Tide finish with the number 1 recruiting class for 2022? Type Y for yes, type N for no. It's going to come down to Alabama and Georgia, probably just like the national championship will. And obviously, you want to win on the recruiting trail just like you want to win on the field. So let me know down in the comments what you think. I'm probably hitting a Y for this one just because I don't think Alabama's done. I'll tell you why right after this. But first, we got to thank today's sponsor of the video, BetUS. Head on over to chatsports.com/TideBet and use this promo code. Am I pointing at the right way? That was the wrong way. It's right there. I'm sorry. Tide 125. Everything's backwards. But you know it's not backwards? This damn deal that BetUS is trying to give you right now, 125% deposit bonus. Nobody else is doing this on the internet. Go over to chatsports.com/TideBet. Use the promo code Tide125. And let's say you put $100 in. They'll match that and then some. You'll have $225 to play with on the site. You can put some money down on maybe Bryce Young winning the Heisman, maybe Alabama winning the national championship, maybe get under the radar there as they slowly climb back up, now number 4 in the country. Let me know what you're betting on down in the comments, but be sure to do it over on BetUS and use the promo code Tide125 over on chatsports.com/TideBet. Shemar James. Could he be headed to Tuscaloosa? The Mobile, Alabama native, the 68th ranked player in the class of 2022, decommitted from Florida. Maybe on the day you're hearing this, maybe the day you're not hearing this, on Wednesday, October 20th, 2021. Where do the Crimson Tide stand in gaining the talented linebacker? As I mentioned, he is the 68th ranked player in the class of 2022. This is what Shemar James had to say on Alabama. It's going good. We talk like every week. I talk to Coach Sal, Coach Pete, a.k.a. Coach Golding. They are really still just talking about recruitment and how I can fit into their scheme. He went on to say this about Alabama as well. They said they're not going to stop until I sign. I would say Alabama has the advantage. I've seen Alabama for what Bama is and everything they have to offer. I've talked to the players. I would say they have the upper hand right now based on the visit. Now, I will clarify real quick. Listen, this came from June, and I find it very interesting that he said that back in June and now decommits from Florida. Alabama is slowly picking up steam in this recruiting process. This is a name to watch for Tide fans when it comes down to it, because I wholeheartedly believe that James could be a guy that comes back and is going to be one of those guys that really is an impact guy on the defense moving forward. So for me, I don't know when exactly he will commit, but I do think that it will happen eventually, just for the sheer fact that, hey, he has a lot of talent. I think he's obviously an Alabama native, and I think that he wants to stay close to home. He is a name to watch for Alabama Crimson Tide fans moving forward on the recruitment trail. Now, Crimson Tide fans, let me know if you want the Crimson Tide to land Shemar James. Just type RC down in the comments for Roll Tide, and let's show him a little bit of love. As you know, social media, YouTube, and everything like that, you got to show these recruits love nowadays. Let's show James some love here and get him down to Tuscaloosa, because he is an impact linebacker from the jump, the 68th ranked player in the class of 2022, according to 24/7. So just type RT down in the comments if you want the Crimson Tide to land him. Speaking of the Crimson Tide, listen, can we get to 8,000 subscribers this week? We currently have 7,133. Listen, I don't like Tennessee. You don't like Tennessee. We got a Tennessee guy in the office. We don't need to talk about that. It's Matthew Peterson. Ugh, you know what I'm saying. But I will say this, Crimson Tide fans, this is your one-stop shop for everything. Who else is giving you free recruiting news weekly right here on YouTube, as well as keeping you up to date with the latest news, rumors, overreactions, as well as recaps of every Crimson Tide football game on the season? Nobody, except right here on the Alabama Football Report. Be sure to hit that big red button and turn it gray today. More Alabama Crimson Tide recruiting news. This one, that didn't go the Tide's way. The 5th-ranked player in the class of 2022 decommitted from Oklahoma in mid-August. Of course, I am talking about Luther Burden, the St. Louis native. He picked Missouri over Alabama and Georgia. And now, I respect kids' decisions all the time and everything like that. I am a big proponent of family. I am a family guy. It makes a ton of sense to me. He just wanted to stay close to home, and I can respect that. It does suck as a Tide fan that he didn't want to come to Tuscaloosa, but that's all right. I can respect his decision to wanting to stay close to home, play in front of his friends and family. You can't hate on a kid for that. He's uber talented. Hopefully doesn't cause too many problems for the Crimson Tide when they do play the Missouri Tigers. But hey, Alabama's sitting in a pretty damn good spot. Let's go over the top 5 classes again for 2022 as Alabama sits at the top according to 24/7, right in front of the number 2 Georgia Bulldogs, and then Penn State, the Nittany Lions at number 3, with Ohio State and Notre Dame rounding out the 4 and 5 spots in the top 5. Listen, it would have been nice to have Burden, right? When you think about it, he is an elite level wide receiver, and there's plenty of those guys on the Alabama roster right now, but he's a difference maker. He really is one of my favorite prospects in the 2022 class. I love his versatility. Hopefully he doesn't beat up on Alabama too much when the Crimson Tide face him down the line, but have to respect the kid for wanting to stay close to home and play in front of friends and family. And listen, Alabama's going to get their talented wide receivers as well as skill position players and guys in the trenches. Don't worry about that. Alabama's going to have a top 3 recruiting class, if not the best recruiting class in the country this season. But I do want you to tell me one thing. What is your one word to describe the 2022 Alabama recruiting class? Again, we're talking about the number 1 recruiting class in the country, and obviously the SEC. If they're number 1 in the country, they're obviously going to be number 1 in the conference. I'm just saying, quick math. You know what I'm saying right there. But let me know your one word to describe the 2022 Alabama recruiting class down in the comments. And if you haven't already, hit that big red button and subscribe to the best Alabama football channel on YouTube. It's 100% free, and we're giving you great recruiting content like this all season long right here on the Alabama Football Report.